The massive doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Admiral Jake Morrison walked through them with steady steps, his blue uniform pressed and clean. Behind him, Captain Lisa Barnes carried a small device that would project their ship's design for all the alien representatives to see. The chamber was huge, with seats arranged in circles that went up to the ceiling. Hundreds of different alien species sat in those seats, their eyes watching the two humans with curiosity and something that looked like amusement. Some aliens had blue skin that sparkled like metal. Others looked like giant insects with too many arms. A few appeared to be made of living crystal that caught the light and threw it back in rainbow colors. Jake stopped in the center of the chamber and nodded to Lisa. She pressed a button on her device, and a hologram appeared above them. The image showed their ship, the UES Horizon. It was big and blocky, with gray metal sides and what looked like construction equipment attached to various parts of the hull. The reaction was immediate. Laughter erupted from dozens of different species. The sound was strange because each alien had a different way of showing amusement. The crystal beings made a sound like wind chimes. The insect creatures clicked their mandibles together rapidly. The blue-skinned ones simply opened their mouths and made a noise very much like human laughter. The Zephyrian ambassador stood up from his seat in the front row. He was tall and thin, with skin that looked like polished silver. His eyes glowed with a soft blue light as he pointed at the hologram. "This thing looks like a tool for building space stations," he said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "Where are the plasma conduits that every real warship needs? Where are the quantum resonance chambers? Do these humans really think they can fight with a piece of construction equipment?" More laughter filled the air. Lisa felt her face get hot with embarrassment, but she kept her expression calm. She had helped design this ship, and she knew it was better than it looked. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez sat in the observation section above the main floor. He watched as aliens pointed at his life's work and made jokes. He had spent 3 years working on the Horizon's design. Every piece of metal, every wire, every system had been carefully planned. The aliens could laugh all they wanted, but they did not understand what they were looking at. The ship did look different from alien designs. Most alien warships were smooth and curved, like works of art floating through space. They had flowing lines and surfaces that seemed to glow with inner light. The human ship looked like someone had taken a bunch of rectangular boxes and stuck them together. But Danny knew something the aliens did not. Humans had a saying, "If it's worth doing, it's worth overdoing." The Horizon had 3 backup systems for every important component. If the main engines failed, 2 other engine types could take over. If the primary shields went down, 4 different secondary shield systems would activate. The aliens built their ships to be efficient and beautiful. Humans built their ships to keep working no matter what happened to them. Dr. Elena Vasquez sat next to Danny in the observation area. She was a small woman with gray hair who looked like someone's grandmother, but she was actually Earth's smartest scientist when it came to physics and space technology. While the aliens laughed at the ship's appearance, Elena was studying them. She watched how they moved, listened to how they talked, and noticed things that others missed. Admiral Morrison waited for the laughter to die down before he spoke. "The UES Horizon represents humanity's desire to join the galactic community as defenders of peace," he said. "We request membership in the Galactic Defense Initiative." The Zephyrian ambassador looked around at the other aliens and shook his head. "Your technology is at least 200 years behind the current standards," he said. "Your ship has no gravitic weapons, no plasma cannons, no quantum torpedo tubes. It appears to be armed with—" "What are those things?" "Railguns," Lisa answered. "They fire solid projectiles at very high speeds." This caused another wave of laughter. A representative from the Hive Collective, who looked like a giant praying mantis, stood up and clicked his mandibles together several times before speaking. "Solid projectiles?" the insect alien said. "What's next, rocks and sticks? Do you plan to board enemy ships with swords and clubs?" The laughter got louder. Admiral Morrison's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "Our weapons may seem simple, but they are effective." "Against what?" asked another alien voice. "Asteroids? Space debris? No modern warship has been damaged by kinetic weapons in over 500 years. Our energy shields make such primitive attacks useless." The vote was quick and unanimous. Every single alien representative voted to reject humanity's application to join the Galactic Defense Initiative. The official reason was inadequate military technology and insufficient strategic value. Instead, the Council assigned Earth a new status. Humans would be classified as an agricultural support species. This meant they would grow food for other civilizations while the advanced species handled all military and political matters. It was a polite way of saying that humans were only good for farming. As the meeting ended and aliens began filing out of the chamber, Elena heard conversations in dozens of different languages. They were all saying the same thing in different ways. The humans were primitive. Their ship was a joke. Earth would never be a real player in galactic politics. Elena smiled to herself as she gathered her notes. Let them think what they wanted. While the aliens had been perfecting the same energy weapons and shield systems for centuries, humans had been developing completely different approaches to warfare. The aliens had no idea what kinetic weapons could do when fired at the right speed with the right targeting systems. Jake and Lisa walked out of the chamber with their heads held high, but Elena could see the disappointment in their eyes. They had worked so hard to get this chance, and it had ended in humiliation. Don't worry, Elena said quietly as they reached the exit. Sometimes the best way to win is to let your enemy think they've already won. Outside the chamber, construction crews were still working on the horizon in Earth's orbital shipyard. In 6 months, when the ship was completely finished, the galaxy would learn what human engineering could really do. The aliens thought they knew everything about warfare and technology. They were about to discover how wrong they were. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council had laughed at humanity's warship design. During that time, things in the galaxy had gotten much worse. The Zephyrian Empire had decided that their technological superiority gave them the right to take whatever they wanted from other civilizations. Captain Lisa Barnes stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, looking out at the stars through the main view screen. The ship was finally complete, floating in Earth's orbital shipyard like a giant metal fortress. From the outside, it still looked exactly the same as the hologram that had caused so much laughter in the council chamber. But Lisa knew that the interior had been completely transformed. The bridge was busy with activity as her crew prepared for their first real mission. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cole sat at the tactical station, reading reports that came in from across the galaxy. Each report brought worse news than the last. Captain, Ryan said, looking up from his screen, we're getting word that the Zephyrians have taken control of 12 more star systems in the past month. They're demanding tribute from any civilization that wants to keep trading through their space. Lisa nodded grimly. The Zephyrian Empire had grown bold since the council meeting. Their leaders had decided that if the galaxy's governing body would not stop them, then nothing would. Their crystal ships had been seen in dozens of systems, always with the same message: surrender or be destroyed. Dr. Elena Vasquez walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of technical data. She had spent the last 6 months working almost without sleep, upgrading every system on the horizon with new technology that no alien species had ever seen before. How are the new systems performing? Lisa asked. Elena smiled and showed her the tablet screen. Better than I hoped. The displacement field generators are working perfectly. The electromagnetic pulse arrays are charged and ready. And the railguns are now firing projectiles at 15% the speed of light. Lisa raised her eyebrows. During the council meeting, the aliens had laughed at the idea of kinetic weapons. They believed their energy shields made them immune to any solid projectile. They had no idea that human engineers had figured out how to accelerate metal slugs to speeds that made them hit harder than nuclear. Weapons Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez came up from the engine room with grease on his hands and a satisfied expression on his face. All systems are green, Captain, he reported. The fusion reactors are running at 110% efficiency. The backup power systems are online and ready. This ship could keep fighting even if we lost half our primary systems. The aliens had always focused on making their technology more elegant and efficient. Human engineers had focused on making their technology impossible to break. The horizon had been built with the assumption that everything would go wrong at the worst possible moment. Every critical system had 2 or 3 backups, and some had even more than that. Lieutenant Amy Foster looked up from the communication station. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command. Put it on screen, Lisa ordered. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the view screen, his face serious. Behind him, Lisa could see the flags of Earth's United Nations and the seal of the newly formed Human Space Command. Captain Barnes, Morrison said, the situation has escalated beyond our worst predictions. The Zephyrian Third Armada is moving toward the core worlds. Intelligence estimates they have 47 capital ships, including their flagship, the Crystal Sovereign. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. The core worlds were home to billions of beings from dozens of different species. They were also the location of the Galactic Council's main headquarters. If the Zephyrians took control of the core worlds, they would effectively rule the entire galaxy. "What are our orders, sir?" Lisa asked. Morrison was quiet for a moment. "The Council has sent desperate messages to every major military power in the galaxy, asking for help. None of them are willing to face the Zephyrian Armada. Their technology is too advanced, their ships too powerful." Ryan shook his head. "So they're just going to let the Zephyrians take over?" "Not if we can help it," Morrison replied. "The Horizon is ordered to intercept the Third Armada before they reach the core worlds. You are authorized to use any means necessary to stop them." The bridge went quiet. Everyone understood what the Admiral was really saying. He was sending one human ship to fight an entire alien armada. It was either the bravest thing anyone had ever done, or the most foolish. "Admiral," Lisa said carefully, "are you certain about this? We're talking about 47 enemy capital ships against one of ours." Morrison nodded. "I'm certain, Captain. The Horizon represents something new in this galaxy. The aliens have become so comfortable with their technological superiority that they've stopped innovating. They've been using the same weapons and tactics for hundreds of years, but human technology has been developing along completely different lines." Elena stepped forward. "Admiral, the aliens don't understand kinetic weapons or electromagnetic warfare. Their shields and armor are designed to stop energy attacks, not solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. Their computer systems use crystalline matrices that are vulnerable to the right electromagnetic frequencies. In other words," Danny added, "they've never fought anything like us before." Morrison smiled grimly. "Exactly. The Zephyrians are expecting to face an enemy that fights like they do. They're going to get something completely different." The transmission ended and Lisa turned to face her crew. She could see nervousness in some faces, but also determination. They all knew this mission was probably a one-way trip. But they also knew that if they failed, the galaxy would fall under the control of an empire that saw other species as slaves or resources to be consumed. "All right, people," Lisa said. "We have 6 hours to reach the intercept point. Danny, I want all systems running at maximum efficiency. Ryan, prepare the weapon systems and make sure our new targeting computers are calibrated. Elena, double-check the displacement field generators. Amy, start monitoring Zephyrian military communications." As her crew rushed to prepare for battle, Lisa remained on the bridge, staring out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was moving toward its next conquest. They had no idea that a single human ship was coming to stop them. The Zephyrians had laughed at human technology 6 months ago. They had dismissed the Horizon as a primitive construction tool that had no place in modern warfare. In a few hours, they would discover just how wrong they had been. Lisa opened a communication channel to Earth Command. "Admiral Morrison, this is Captain Barnes. The UES Horizon is departing Earth orbit and proceeding to intercept coordinates. We'll show these aliens what human engineering can really do." The UES Horizon dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, with barely a whisper. Captain Lisa Barnes watched the main screen as her ship's sensors began mapping the area ahead of them. What they found was both magnificent and terrifying. The Zephyrian Third Armada hung in space like a collection of giant jewels. 47 massive ships arranged themselves in perfect formation, their crystalline hulls catching starlight and reflecting it in brilliant flashes of color. Each ship was at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, and their flagship, the Crystal Sovereign, was large enough to hold a small city inside its translucent walls. "Distance to the nearest enemy ship?" Lisa asked. Lieutenant Amy Foster checked her navigation console. 200,000 kilometers in closing, Captain. They haven't noticed us yet." Dr. Elena Vasquez studied the sensor readings from her science station. The alien ships were exactly as she had expected. Their hulls were made of a special crystal that absorbed energy from stars and converted it into power for their weapons. Their shields used the same energy to create barriers that could stop any plasma or laser attack. "They're beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cole from his position at Tactical. "But they're also sitting ducks. Look at that formation. They're arranged for intimidation, not for battle." Lisa had to agree. The Zephyrian ships were positioned to look impressive, with the largest vessels in front and smaller cruisers arranged in neat rows behind them. It was the kind of formation that would terrify most civilizations into surrender, but it was also the kind of formation that assumed no one would be foolish enough to actually attack them. On the bridge of the Crystal Sovereign, Commander HFY observed the approaching human ship with amusement. He was tall even for a Zephyrian, with silver skin that had been polished to a mirror shine. His eyes glowed with the same blue energy that powered his ship's weapons. "Look at this," he said to his officers, pointing at the tactical display. "The humans have sent their little construction ship to face us. Do they truly believe that one primitive vessel can stand against the might of the Empire?" His first officer, a younger Zephyrian with darker silver skin, shook his head in disbelief. "Perhaps they intend to surrender, Commander. Surely they cannot mean to fight." HFY laughed, a sound like crystal bells ringing. "Open a communication channel. I will give them one chance to retreat with their dignity intact." The face of Commander HFY appeared on the horizon's main screen. Lisa had seen Zephyrians before, but she was still struck by how alien they looked. His features were sharp and angular, like someone had carved them from metal. When he spoke, his voice had a musical quality that was both beautiful and somehow threatening. "Human vessel," HFY said, "you are outnumbered 47-1. Your ship appears to be constructed from scavenged materials and primitive technology. Withdraw now, and we will grant you the privilege of witnessing our conquest of the core worlds from a safe distance." Lisa stood up from her command chair and smoothed her uniform. She had practiced this moment in her mind dozens of times during the journey to intercept the Armada. Now it was time to deliver humanity's answer. "Zephyrian fleet," she said calmly, "you are in violation of 17 interstellar treaties and the Galactic Charter of Peaceful Coexistence. Withdraw immediately from this system and return to your own territory, or face the consequences." The silence that followed was broken by laughter from the Zephyrian bridge. Lisa could hear multiple voices joining in, creating a sound like an entire orchestra of crystal instruments playing a chaotic tune. "Consequences," HFY repeated when the laughter died down. "What consequences could one primitive ship possibly pose to the Third Armada? Your weapons are centuries out of date. Your shields, if you even have any, cannot possibly withstand our plasma cannons, and your armor looks like it was assembled in a scrapyard." Elena quietly checked her calculations one more time. She had spent months studying Zephyrian technology from captured sensor readings and salvaged components. Their energy shields operated on specific frequencies. Their weapons drew power through crystalline matrices that followed predictable patterns. Most importantly, their ships had no protection against the type of attack the horizon was about to unleash. "Ryan," Lisa said quietly, "are all weapon systems ready?" "All railguns loaded and charged, Captain," Ryan replied. "Electromagnetic pulse arrays are at full power. Displacement field generators are online and ready for activation." Danny Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom from the engine room. "Captain, all backup systems are active. We're ready for whatever they throw at us." Lisa took a deep breath. The next few minutes would determine not just the fate of her ship and crew, but possibly the future of humanity in the galaxy. If they failed here, Earth would remain a second-class agricultural world forever. If they succeeded, everything would change. Commander HFY was growing impatient. The human captain had not responded to his generous offer to retreat. Perhaps these primitive beings needed a demonstration of Zephyrian power to understand their situation. "Very well, humans," he said. "You have chosen to learn through pain rather than wisdom. All ships prepare to fire. Target their engines and weapon systems. I want them alive to witness our victory over the core worlds." 47 Zephyrian ships began powering up their plasma cannons. Energy built up in their crystalline hulls like light gathering in a prism. The space around the Armada began to glow with barely contained power. Lisa watched the enemy ships charge their weapons and felt oddly calm. Everything was proceeding exactly as Elena had predicted. The Zephyrians were following their standard tactics, using their standard weapons, making all the assumptions that would prove to be their downfall. "Elena," Lisa said, "activate the displacement field." "Displacement field active, Captain," Elena replied. "We are now existing in approximately 47 different positions simultaneously." The Zephyrians fired. 47 concentrated plasma beams lanced through space toward the position where their sensors told them the horizon was located. The energy release was tremendous. enough to vaporize an asteroid or boil away the atmosphere of a small planet. The beams passed harmlessly through empty space. Commander HFY stared at his tactical display in confusion. His sensors still showed the human ship in the same location, but their weapons had clearly missed. He ordered his weapons officer to fire again, with the same result. "How are they doing this?" he demanded. His science officer, a pale Zephyrian with nervous mannerisms, studied his instruments frantically. "Commander, our sensors show the human ship in multiple locations at once. It's as if they exist in several different positions simultaneously." "That's impossible," HFY snapped. "No known technology can achieve such an effect." "Fire when ready, Ryan," Lisa said calmly. The UES Horizon struck back. The UES Horizon's response was unlike anything the Zephyrian Empire had ever encountered in 1,000 years of galactic warfare. Hidden panels along the ship's hull slid open with mechanical precision, revealing weapon systems that no alien species had ever seen before. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cole pressed the firing controls at his tactical station. "First salvo away, Captain." 8 railguns fired simultaneously. The weapons accelerated tungsten projectiles to 15% of light speed using magnetic fields so powerful they could have torn apart smaller asteroids. The metal slugs were each the size of a baseball, but at their velocity, they carried more kinetic energy than nuclear weapons. Commander HFY watched his tactical display as 8 dots appeared, moving toward his fleet at impossible speeds. His weapons officer tried to target the incoming projectiles, but they were traveling too fast for the Zephyrian targeting systems to track. "What are those things?" HFY demanded. His science officer's voice was shaking. "Solid projectiles, Commander. But they're moving at relativistic speeds. Impact in 3 seconds." The first projectile struck the Zephyrian cruiser Crystalline Dawn directly in its center hull section. The tungsten slug, moving at 45 million meters per second, hit the crystal armor with the force of a meteor impact. The alien ship's energy shields, designed to deflect plasma and laser attacks, offered no resistance to solid matter traveling at such velocity. The cruiser simply disintegrated. One moment it was a beautiful crystal ship reflecting starlight, and the next it was expanding debris field of shattered crystal and vaporized metal. The explosion was so violent that nearby ships were damaged by the flying wreckage. 2 more projectiles found their targets within the next second. The cruisers Silver Prism and Dawn's Edge met the same fate as their sister ship. 3 of the Empire's finest vessels had been destroyed in less than 5 seconds by weapons the aliens had dismissed as primitive. "Impossible," HFY whispered, staring at the tactical display where 3 of his ships had simply vanished. "Our shields should have stopped those attacks. Our armor was designed to withstand any known weapon." Dr. Elena Vasquez monitored the battle from her science station, watching as her theories proved correct in the most dramatic way possible. The Zephyrians had spent centuries perfecting defenses against energy weapons. They had never considered that someone might attack them with solid objects moving at near light speeds. "Ryan," Captain Lisa Barnes said calmly, "activate the electromagnetic pulse arrays." "EMP arrays active and targeting." "Captain," Ryan replied. Elena had spent months studying the crystalline technology that powered Zephyrian ships. Their entire civilization was based on using crystal matrices to store and channel energy. It was elegant and efficient, but it had one critical weakness. The crystals operated on specific electromagnetic frequencies, and if those frequencies were disrupted, the entire system would collapse. Focused beams of electromagnetic energy lanced out from the Horizon's hull. The invisible waves swept across the Zephyrian formation, targeting the exact frequencies that Elena had identified. One by one, the crystal ships began to go dark as their power systems overloaded and shut down. The cruiser Eternal Radiance lost power first. Its crystalline hull stopped glowing, its weapons went offline, and its engines shut down. The ship began drifting helplessly through space, its crew trapped inside a powerless vessel. Commander HFY felt his own ship shudder as the electromagnetic pulse hit the Crystal Sovereign. Emergency lights began flashing on his bridge as secondary systems kicked in. His weapons officer was frantically working at his console, trying to restore power to the plasma cannons. "Commander," the weapons officer reported, "primary power systems are offline. Backup crystals are overloading. We cannot return fire." More Zephyrian ships lost power as the electromagnetic attacks continued. The proud Third Armada, which had conquered dozens of star systems, was being systematically disabled by a single human vessel that looked like it had been built in a scrapyard. Danny Rodriguez monitored the Horizon systems from the engine room. The rail guns were cycling through their reloading sequence, preparing for another salvo. The electromagnetic pulse arrays were operating at peak efficiency, and the displacement field generators were keeping the ship safe from any return fire. "All systems green, Captain," Danny reported over the intercom. "We can keep this up as long as you need." Lisa watched the tactical display as more enemy contacts went dark. The Zephyrians were trying to adapt, rerouting power through secondary systems and adjusting their shield frequencies. But Elena had anticipated every possible countermeasure during her months of preparation. "They're attempting to restore power," Elena reported, compensating with frequency adjustments. The electromagnetic pulse arrays shifted their targeting parameters, following the Zephyrian attempts to work around the interference. Every time an alien ship managed to restore partial power, the human weapons would adjust and shut it down again. Ryan checked his weapon status. "Railguns reloaded and ready for second salvo, Captain." "Target their remaining active ships," Lisa ordered. "Focus on the largest vessels first." The second salvo of tungsten projectiles streaked across space toward the few Zephyrian ships that still had power. The heavy cruiser Infinite Glory exploded in a shower of crystal fragments. The battleship Stellar Majesty broke apart when a projectile punched through its hull and detonated its main power core. "Commander," Zeph-High's communications officer managed to get a message through to Zephyrian. "High Command using emergency backup systems. This is the Third Armada," he broadcast. "We are under attack by a single human vessel. Repeat, one human ship is destroying our entire fleet. Request immediate reinforcements. Request everything." The response from High Command was immediate and filled with disbelief. "Third Armada, confirm your last transmission." "Did you say one ship?" "Confirmed," Zeph-High replied grimly. "One primitive human vessel has disabled or destroyed 34 of our ships. Their weapons ignore our shields. Their technology is not what we expected." Lisa looked at the tactical display one final time. Of the 47 ships that had made up the Zephyrian Third Armada, only 8 were still partially operational. The rest were either destroyed or drifting powerless through space. The battle that was supposed to have been a brief demonstration of Zephyrian superiority had become the worst military disaster in the Empire's history. "Ryan," she said, "open a channel to the surviving ships." Commander Zeph-High's face appeared on the screen again, but now he looked very different. His silver skin had lost its polish and his glowing eyes were dim with shock and fear. Behind him, Lisa could see Zephyrian crew members working frantically to restore power to their damaged systems. "Commander Zeph-High," Lisa said, "your armada is defeated. Order your surviving ships to withdraw immediately, or we will complete their destruction." Zeph-High stared at the human captain for a long moment. The being who had seemed so primitive and inferior just minutes earlier had proved to be the most dangerous enemy the Empire had ever faced. "The Third Armada will withdraw," he said quietly. "But this is not over, human. The Empire has hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships." Lisa smiled grimly. "And how many of them want to face another ship like this one?" The silence that followed gave her the answer she expected. Word of this battle would spread across the galaxy within hours. Every military commander in the Empire would hear how 47 capital ships had been defeated by a single human vessel. Fear would accomplish what diplomacy never could. The remaining Zephyrian ships began limping away from the battlefield, their crews working desperately to restore enough power for faster-than-light travel. They left behind a debris field that had once been the pride of their military, and a lesson that would reshape galactic politics forever. The age of Zephyrian dominance was over. The age of human power had begun. News of the Horizon's victory traveled across the galaxy faster than any ship could fly. Within 6 hours of the battle's end, every major civilization had received detailed reports of how a single human vessel had destroyed the Zephyrian Third Armada. The reaction was immediate and profound. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session for the second time in 6 months. The same chamber that had echoed with laughter at humanity's primitive technology now buzzed with nervous whispers and fearful speculation. The alien representatives who had once dismissed Earth as an agricultural world were now demanding answers about human military capabilities. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the center of the chamber once again, but this time the atmosphere was completely different. No one was laughing. No one was making jokes about construction equipment or primitive weapons. The holographic display behind him showed images from the battle's aftermath. A debris field where 47 crystal ships had once sailed in formation. 6 months ago, Morrison began, his voice carrying clearly through the silent chamber. This council rejected humanity's application for membership in the Galactic Defense Initiative. You stated that our technology was inadequate and our strategic value was insufficient. The Zephyrian ambassador, who had been so confident and dismissive before, now sat hunched in his seat. His metallic skin had lost its polish and his glowing eyes were dim with something that looked very much like fear. You assumed that different meant inferior? Morrison continued. You believed that because our approach to warfare was unlike yours, it must be primitive. You were wrong. Dr. Elena Vasquez stepped forward to address the council. She looked exactly the same as she had 6 months ago, like a harmless grandmother with gray hair and a kind smile. But now every alien in the chamber was listening to her with complete attention. While your civilizations perfected energy-based weapons and exotic matter manipulation, Elena explained, humanity took a different path. We developed kinetic weapons, electromagnetic warfare, and space-time manipulation through entirely novel approaches. You grew comfortable with your technological superiority and stopped innovating. We never stopped improving. A representative from the Hive Collective, the insect-like species that had mocked human weapons as rocks and sticks, spoke up with a trembling voice. How is it possible? Our energy shields have protected our ships for centuries. No kinetic weapon should be able to penetrate them. Elena smiled patiently as if explaining something to a curious student. Your shields deflect energy attacks by dispersing their power across a wide area. But a solid projectile moving at relativistic speeds doesn't spread its energy. It concentrates all of its kinetic force into a single point of impact. No known material can withstand that kind of focused energy release. Captain Lisa Barnes and her crew had been invited to address the council as well. As she stood before the same aliens who had once laughed at her ship's design, Lisa felt a quiet satisfaction. The Horizon was still the same boxy, ungainly vessel it had always been, but now it was also the most feared warship in the galaxy. The Zephyrian Empire has 48 hours to begin withdrawing from all occupied territories, Lisa announced. All enslaved species will be granted immediate independence. Reparations will be paid to worlds that were damaged during the Empire's expansion. These terms are not negotiable. The Zephyrian ambassador tried to object, but his voice lacked any of the arrogance he had displayed before. You cannot dictate terms to the entire Empire, he said weakly. We have hundreds of fleets, thousands of ships throughout the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Cole, standing beside his captain, looked directly at the alien representative. How many of those fleets want to face another ship like the Horizon? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Everyone in the chamber knew the answer. Word of the battle had already reached every corner of Zephyrian space. Military commanders were refusing orders to engage human vessels. Some fleets had simply abandoned their positions rather than risk encountering humanity's new weapons. Within 72 hours, the Zephyrian Empire began the largest military withdrawal in galactic history. Conquered worlds that had been under alien rule for decades suddenly found themselves free. Species that had been enslaved for generations watched crystal ships retreating into deep space, never to return. Other aggressive civilizations took note of what had happened and quietly ended their own expansion campaigns. The Hive Collective recalled their bioships from disputed border regions. The Stellar Federation pulled back from systems they had been preparing to invade. No one wanted to be the next civilization to test human military technology. The UES Horizon returned to Earth as humanity's first official representative to a reorganized Galactic Council. The governing body that had once operated on principles of technological supremacy was forced to adopt new rules based on equality and cooperation rather than might makes right politics. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez stood on the observation deck of the Horizon, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen as they approached home. Behind them, construction crews were already working on 12 additional ships of the same class. Humanity would never again be dismissed as a primitive agricultural species. It's funny, Danny said to Elena, who was standing beside him. 6 months ago, they thought we were too primitive to defend ourselves. Now they're terrified that we're too advanced to be stopped. Elena chuckled. Fear is a powerful motivator, but it's not a stable foundation for peace. We'll need to show them that humans can be trusted with power. Down in engineering, teams of human technicians were already working on improvements to the Horizon systems. The railguns could be made more powerful. The electromagnetic pulse arrays could be more precisely focused. The displacement field generators could be miniaturized for use on smaller ships. But the most important change was happening in Earth's shipyards. Construction had begun on an entire fleet of Horizon-class vessels, each one incorporating lessons learned from the battle with the Zephyrian Armada. Humanity was no longer building one prototype warship. They were building a navy. Admiral Morrison received reports from across the galaxy as alien civilizations scrambled to understand the new balance of power. Scientists from dozens of species were requesting permission to study human technology. Diplomats who had once ignored Earth's communications were now begging for audiences with human representatives. Sir, his aide reported, we've received formal applications from 17 different species requesting protection under human military guarantees. They're offering technology sharing, trade agreements, and mutual defense pacts. Morrison nodded. The galaxy was restructuring itself around a new reality. Humanity had gone from being ignored to being the most influential military power in known space, all because they had approached the problem of warfare from a completely different angle than everyone else. Captain Barnes stood on the bridge of the Horizon as it entered Earth's orbital space. Through the viewscreen, she could see the blue and green world where humanity had first developed the technologies that would reshape galactic civilization. It looked peaceful and beautiful, a perfect contrast to the devastation they had left behind in the Kepler system. Amy, she said to her communications officer, open a channel to Earth Command. Admiral Morrison's face appeared on the screen, and Lisa could see pride and satisfaction in his expression. Welcome home, Captain. How does it feel to be the most famous military commander in the galaxy? Lisa smiled. It feels like responsibility, sir. We've proven that human technology can defeat any known threat. Now we need to prove that humanity can be trusted to use that power wisely. As the Horizon settled into its docking bay, teams of engineers and scientists were already preparing to study every detail of its performance during the battle. The data they gathered would be used to improve the next generation of human warships, ensuring that Earth's newfound position of strength would be maintained. But more importantly, humanity had learned something about itself during the confrontation with the Zephyrian Armada. When faced with impossible odds and universal dismissal, humans had responded not with surrender or despair, but with innovation and determination. They had taken their perceived weaknesses and turned them into devastating strengths. The galaxy had spent centuries believing that there was only one path to military superiority. Humanity had proved that assumption wrong, and in doing so had forever changed the balance of power among the stars. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had begun, and nothing would ever be the same again.